Nintendo has taken home the biggest W of the year. Fortnite has come out claiming that Nintendo refused a partnership deal with them to have Samus Aran in Fortnite. And of course, the YouTubers, the Pretendos, the Twitter users, like those parasites are all bleeding about how terrible this is. Like, oh man, Nintendo could have gotten a ton of free publicity for this niche franchise. They could have sold a lot more units of Metroid Dread. And I'm sitting here just laughing, laughing at you, laughing at Epic, laughing at Fortnite, because the sheer reality of the situation is that Nintendo does not need Fortnite. Okay, they don't need Samus Aran in Fortnite to promote the brand. Like they don't need Fortnite to sell Nintendo Switches. If anything, I think all this does is reaffirm what I've been saying for a long time is that Fortnite, in spite of being this huge money making machine, is not going to be something that's going to be relevant 20 years from now. The reality is people are going to be seeing these legendary video game icons, the Samus Arans, the Links, the Marios, and they're gonna see that they're all exclusive on Nintendo hardware, and they're gonna buy Nintendo consoles, right? Again, this leads into a little bit of what I've been saying for a long time in regards to this into this kind of situation, right? Nintendo is not going third party because going third party, making these disadvantages deals with these companies would ruin their business, right? People always say like, well, imagine if Mario was on PlayStation, how much better would the graphics be? Like completely unaware of just how successful the hardware is for Nintendo, right? Like completely unaware just how much like having their own hardware just does for them. Honestly, right? Like the reality is Nintendo has become synonymous with video games. There's in spite of the industry's every attempt to try to undermine them at every opportunity. And I do think this generation in particular is the first ever in which it's indisputable that Nintendo is dominating the sphere, right? The biggest games on the market right now, Fortnite and Minecraft, are on Nintendo consoles, right? Even if they're multi-plat, Fortnite and Minecraft are very much prevalent on Nintendo hardware. And so like companies like Rockstar Games, refusing to put GTA on Switch, right? That's not that's not an L for Switch. If anything, it's an L for Grand Theft Auto because all of these people who are buying iconic video games on Nintendo Switch are going to start associating Grand Theft Auto with a lesser brand, right? That is what we're going to start seeing going forward is that like all of these big AAA studios, the Larians, the Avalanches, the people behind Baldur's Gate 3, Hogwarts Legacy, Spider-Man 2, like all of these frauds are absolutely going to be secondary to the Nintendo consoles, right? It's remarkable to me how Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, two games who were like very heavily downplayed last year, are the only games in 2024 that anyone continues to remember, talk about, and play constantly, right? Everything else has been forgotten, like brushed aside in favor of the new flavor of the month stuff. Pow World, Helldivers 2, uh, Dragon's Dogma 2, right? Rise of the Ronin, right? The industry has tried desperately to move the gaming industry away from Nintendo hardware, and it has completely failed. And looking at this Epic deal, looking at like what Nintendo was offered and why they refused it, it's safe to say that even this kind of partnership, where like Samus Aran would just cameo in in an Epic product, cameo in Fortnite, Nintendo did not need to do that deal. Right. The reality is Samus Aran is never leaving Nintendo hardware. Mario is never leaving Nintendo hardware. Zelda is never leaving Nintendo hardware. Like Pokemon is never leaving Nintendo hardware. Like you really have dozens and dozens of these high quality brands that are never ever going to be seen on anything other than a Nintendo platform. And so Fortnite, struggling to remain relevant is slowly going to fade into irrelevancy. I do think people are really like underestimating what's going to happen the instant that Fortnite stops being the biggest thing on the planet, by the way. Like, I think Nintendo is very forward thinking in regards to this because Metroid is going to be very relevant 20 years from now. Fortnite is not. Like Fortnite is going to be the thing when it falls off, when it stops being the biggest thing ever. Like people are going to look back on that and think, what were we thinking? I've made this comparison on Twitter, but I think it's worth bringing up again. Like it reminds me of the Twilight Saga, right? Remember when like you were a kid and listening to like everyone around you start like talking about like, ooh, Twilight, it's the greatest thing ever. And then you like start doing research or you read it or you see the movie and you see like, vlogs about it. You see like Spoonie's video about it. Like you see like Twilight and then you start associating it with like just pure garbage, right? Twilight was already on the decline by the time like the fourth and final book came out, right? It was like weirdly unpopular, even as the movies were still being rolled out. But like by the time like the movies were done, like Twilight was over. Like it just completely fell off the face of the earth. And although like there are still a lot of people nostalgic for it, the reality is like everybody outside of that core audience really grew to hate it, right? If you don't have the mind of a 14-year-old girl, you're not going to find Twilight appealing, right? And Fortnite, I think, is very much going to be the same kind of thing. You know, if it wasn't for these kind of like licensing deals, like jangling keys in front of your face all the time, like I think Fortnite would have fallen off a long time ago, right? There's nothing really keeping the audience coming back. And like every season, it feels like less and less people are logging on, less and less people are talking about it. Like the only reason I think it's remained relevant so long is because it was free, because it was like an innovator in that space, right? But the reality is, I think Fortnite, more than any other game I've ever seen, has demonstrated why mobile will never, ever overtake Nintendo hardware. The reality is, this kind of product will never be able to compete with Nintendo doing new and interesting things with different properties every couple of months, right? Like, you simply can't Fortnite simply can't compete with like Mario, Tears of the Kingdom coming out, and then Pikmin 4, and then Mario Wonder, and then Princess Peach Showtime. Like Fortnite is just the same thing it's always been, right? And you can argue that's great, you can enjoy it, but at the end of the day, you are not going to be able to compete with the sheer variety. And you can't say that like, well, I'll just play something else on my phone then, because nothing else is as popular or as good, right? You can play Minecraft on your phone, but like the experience is better on the Switch, right? You're not going to have access to the Nintendo stuff on the iPhone version, right? Like the reality is, Epic seems to have tried to strong arm Nintendo into putting their games on the Epic Game Store. Going to PC, doing deals with Fortnite, and Nintendo looked Tim Sweeney straight in the eye and told him to fuck off. And for that, I applaud Nintendo. I applaud their executives. I think they did a glorious thing. Like I do think this in and of itself proves that Nintendo is like the greatest in the industry, even though we're still like in this phase where everybody is just kind of denying it, right? I do think this has been like the trend over the past several years is that like everybody's trying to downplay Nintendo. Everybody's trying to pretend that like, oh no, Baldur's Gate 3 is gonna destroy Nintendo. Oh man, Dragon's Dogma 2 is gonna destroy Nintendo. Ooh, Tekken 8 will destroy Nintendo. Hey, guess what? Most kids today will recognize Kazuya from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, not Tekken 8. Why? Because Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is far more popular than any Tekken game. You know, by the time the next Super Smash Bros. Comes out, I'm sure like that franchise will have outsold Tekken if it hasn't already. Like Kazuya is, for all intents and purposes, a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate character. So seeing him not on a Nintendo Switch is probably a big reason why Tekken 8 isn't doing well. But yeah, when you just look at the reality of what's been going on with with Fortnite and Epic and Nintendo, like you can't help but realize that Nintendo is in the best position they have ever been. They have won the console war, and now they are in the middle of dominating the entire entertainment industry.